Well, here we are again, beyondlimitsradio.com if you want to find our podcasts. We're also on Apple and anywhere you get podcasts. I'm Reverend Larry DeRusha in St. Louis at the Center for Spiritual Living, and Lee Wallach is on the other side of the camera, and he is from the Agape Spiritual Center. So talk to me about stress. What are we dealing with here when you say let's talk about stress?
It's real interesting, Larry. Everybody seems to understand that stress is a major cause of illness. It's a major cause of relationship problems. It's a problem of us getting into meditation. And so last week, I spent a whole bunch of time asking people. I said, "What is your definition of stress?" And the funny thing is they didn't know. And so I finally came up and I said, "Here's my definition of stress. Our inability to adapt to an ever-changing environment." It's just that simple. It's our inability to adapt to an ever-changing environment, and it is based on our perceptions and our expectations. And if you really bring all of that into the picture, you have an understanding of stress and you can work with it. You can deal with it. You can come out of it. Why am I feeling stressed? Well, what's the situation? What's the change I'm dealing with? What is my perception of it? Do I have a realistic expectation? But if you have no idea, all you do is have these feelings, and these feelings can take you down into the gutter, and you won't feel a possibility of getting out.
Yeah, to think about stress is also important to understand that stress generally is caused by our thought process.
Yep.
Overwhelming means I can't deal with all of the things that are going on in my mind, because truthfully, all the things that are going on out there are always going on out there.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's stressing you is because something is matched up with your thinking process, and then we project out there that that's what's causing my stress, because I don't want to be responsible for it. That's my sense of it anyway. So in Science of Mind, we were just talking about the basics of Science of Mind. We say change your thinking, change your life. Well, that's a very quick moniker for it, but change your thinking means there's habitual ways of thinking, and we've talked about this before, that are your stressors. So relationships is always a big one for stress for people. And I know for me, it truly boils down to what are my expectations of the other person?
Yeah.
What's my expectations of Mary Jean? When, I had expectations when we first met. I had expectations the next day and the day after. Every day has different kinds of expectations. And the beauty is when you let go of all of that, for me, is it's so easy.
Well, that's pure love. When you let go. When you're not letting go, that's putting a condition on the situation, and that's not going to end real well. I was reading Osho this week, as I do every day, and Osho said that meditation, love, and sex were the exact same thing. And I sat there.
Wow, I need to meditate a lot more.
Yeah. And he said, it's real simple. He says, when you're in deep meditation, you have no needs. When you're in deep meditation, you're fully in the now. When you're in deep meditation, you forget the I am, the ego. When you're in love, you have no expectations. You're in the moment, and you forget yourself in the love. And in the act of a true loving sexual experience, there's no needs. You're in the moment, and you lose yourself in the moment. And he says all three of them are actually the same point, which is the state of the divine. I found that fascinating.
It's great. I think that's really interesting, the way he put those together. And I also think it's very difficult for people to be in the now.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that one of our problems, is the mind wants to go to the future and project, and it wants to go to the past and cry. And for us to be in the moment for any period of time is very difficult. And yet, many of the meditation teachers I've come across have all said meditation is really a letting go. And my favorite one is from Rupert Spira, is your life is meditation.
Yeah.
Meaning, however, he's not talking about the ego, separate self part. He's talking about that which is not that separate self, which is just thought. And that to me made all the sense in the world, because awareness is what meditation is. Even in your deepest state of meditation that you can possibly get into, you're still aware.
Yeah.
It's irreducible.
And I said this last week, I think in my talk, was that life is a never-ending state of falling in love. It's a never-ending state of letting go. It's a never-ending state of trying, I'm saying trying here, to be in the moment. Because man, our minds take us out of the moment as fast as we get into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a challenge. Everybody has it as a challenge. I think it's part of the human condition that there are only a few people that have been able to, I don't know how many, a few people that have gotten to the point where they're in the moment all the time. An Osho might be one, a Spiro might be one. There are many others. But it's interesting because the mind is so busy for us. Now, I'm just saying, in today's world, maybe in an agrarian situation 1,000 years ago, it wouldn't be quite so much, because you're just out there with nature and being in nature. But today we are bombarded by information. We're bombarded by, all of the noise that's out there, whether it's cars driving by or horns honking, or we had a test of the sirens today for the tornadoes. And then we had jets going over and people in the hallway talking. There's all kinds of distractions for the mind. And then you get in your relationship, and then you got your work relationships, all of this stuff. It's interesting how it comes together. We talk about stress. One of the things we've been dealing with since yesterday is a good friend of ours passed away. And it was rapid. I mean, diagnosed and 3 weeks later gone. And it creates stress. It creates the stress of, I didn't get there to talk to him, or I should have called him more, or I should have, the shoulds start piling up on each other. And interestingly enough, when he passed, he was with his wife and said, I've had a great life. I wouldn't change anything. So don't mourn for me, and take my ashes and put them in that old coffee can I have and throw it out in the ocean. Maybe in 1,000 years they'll wonder, what kind of coffee is this? So he wasn't stressed.
No, and he wasn't taking life seriously. And that's the beauty of it. My God.
Yeah. Quite an individual. So, and in stress, what's the typical way in which people find to deal with stress?
They either express or repress.
Yeah.
They're either expressing anger, resentment, hostility, or they're repressing it inside. And either way, it's still stressful. No matter what they do, and they don't realize, you've got to get to the cause. You've got to find the cause and neutralize the cause. Until you do that, whether you're expressing it or repressing it, it's having an impact on you.
So when you say get to the cause, what are you talking about?
Understand, what is the situation that you're not able to adapt to? And why are you not adapting? Do you have a bad perception of the situation? Do you have an unrealistic expectation? Do you have an expectation laid on you by someone else? Or is it your own expectation that's really way off base? We can create stress as a minister because we think, oh my God, I should have this many people. Who created that expectation? Well, I did. Well, if I change that expectation, I can change my experience. But if I don't know, we never ask. Here's the thing that I'm learning is that people don't ask questions anymore, Larry. They blindly accept doctors telling them what to do. They blindly accept that this is science, this is this. Wait a second. From what I understand, no one knows anything about COVID-19. No one really knows anything. Everyone has all these opinions. They don't have rock solid data, but they're coming out there promoting. I tell people, here's the thing I want to ask you. What do you think is right for you to do to have a really healthy body? Could it be as simple as drinking water, eating healthy food, exercising, meditating, taking proper supplementation? Maybe if your immune system was in a state of homeostasis, you wouldn't have an issue with what's going on out there. I don't know. And that's
Well, the more stress you're under, the more likely you are to get it.
exactly
That's very clear.
because it breaks down your immune system, the stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fear of I might get it is like dangling, bait for a fish. They're gonna, you're gonna get it because that fear is so prominent. And that goes back to the whole business of vibration, the vibration, the law of attraction. And that's the whole concept of, the law of attraction. When you get into a stressful situation, you're going to start seeing things that are going to be stressors.
Yeah.
And when you start seeing things that are stressors, you're going to think there's something going on that's wrong with you. And so I began to say, oh, what's happening with me? Why am I? And it's a snowball going downhill rapidly.
Yes. And it's hard to stop that snowball. I would say for me, it's having people in my life like you and several others that I've got that say, hey, wait a second, Lee, have you asked this question? Have you looked at this from a different perspective? Get you to just slow down. If nothing else, just stop and meditate. Just stop and breathe.
Yeah. I tend to go out for a walk.
Yeah.
I did just before we sat down. I went out for a walk. This morning when I woke up, it was 30 degrees. By 11 o'clock, it was 49. And so
beautiful.
Beautiful sun. So I was out walking and thinking, what is it that I'm perceiving? What am I seeing? And how is that different than because of my thought process or my mental atmosphere? And just these questions kept coming to me as I'm walking. Now, is that person who is on the other side of the street, what are they perceiving?
Yeah.
And what's the difference between their perception and my perception? And all of that was coming to a place of, do I really know myself? And do I know myself from the point of view of, are these perceptions all based on the fact that I've had a long life and certain things are now codified into a neurostructure that cause me to see through these rose-colored glasses all the time? And I'm not really seeing reality.
I tend to believe that we're seeing only a part of it. I know.
Well, certainly according to science.
Yeah. And interesting thing about stress. I was talking with my son, and he was considering this new job offer that he got. And after weighing the job offer, he came to the conclusion that he was not going to accept it. Mm-hmm. And he had all these reasons, and he was stressing about how did he tell the company that he interviewed with that he was not going to take the job. And I said, why would you care how they take it? I said, the key thing is be honest with them. You've been honest with them throughout the whole interview process. If you're honest and you're in integrity with yourself, and they say, well, I'm not taking it because I feel that where I'm currently at is a better situation for me. If they ask for details, you can go into the individual details. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't value him the way the current company values him, and the opportunity where he's at is greater than where they want him to go. And so I said, you've got to give up the idea of trying to please them because it's not your job to do that. You obviously sold them. They didn't sell you. But we're in this mindset that we have to be people pleasers, that we have to worry about how someone else is going to take it. And I say, give it up. As long as you're being authentic, as long as you're being truthful, I could care less what someone else thinks because I can't control it.
Right. Yeah, can't. Absolutely. So for those who are in stressful situations right now, what would be one specific thing that could help them reduce their stress?
Take some deep breaths. That would be the first thing. Just take some very, very deep breaths and just connect into the breath. Then I would say probably, if they're not experienced, do a guided meditation. Mm-hmm. And then just start asking them questions. Just to ask themselves questions. So I have this stress. What is it that I'm dealing with that I cannot understand? What is it that I'm not able to adapt to? What is it that I have a high expectation to? And it's not an easy thing, Larry, because people probably that are doing this have been doing it for years and years and years, and you're asking them to break a habit of thought that
Sure.
really takes time.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe the best thing is to find a good coach, whether it's a
Yeah.
spiritual coach or a personal coach, someone who's not invested in their life that can ask them the questions.
Yeah. I got a call from someone who I coached over 30 years ago and came back into my life saying, I need some more coaching because everything is different than it used to be, it seems to me. And I imagine a lot of people are going through that. I think the big thing about stress that we need to point out is wherever there's stress, there's resistance.
Yes.
And whatever that resistance is, it's generated by the ego self.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that, I use that all the time is, I feel resistance coming. My ego doesn't like what's happening here. What do I need to know? And if you use your intuition, you can get an answer without going through the mind telling you all of the different stories it usually generates. And I said something about that Sunday about intuition, and it was interesting. Half the people raised their hands, yeah, I have intuition, the other half didn't.
Yeah.
They don't think they have it. And of course, school is not the place to teach you intuition. Our typical school system tells you to do the opposite.
Yes.
Be rational.
And Larry, I'm going through that right now as a minister, and I'm sure you are, is because I see that ministry is changed. It's never going back to the way it was. And I have no idea what to do next. I have no idea where it's going. But here's what I do know. If I just follow that intuition and just do every day, one day at a time, I'll know when the next change is it's time to. But the key thing is you've got to be able to open to see it differently. Because if you're hoping for it to go back, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's always changing. But I think in terms of church, as we would say church, there's going to be a bastion of those that are still going to be doing the same thing they've always done, and they have a habitual following, I call it. People that want to go and be in that circle, want to be around those friends and so on and community. But it is changing drastically, and I do think the millennial generation is totally different on this idea of church and gatherings. And, most of the millennials that we have, they don't pay attention to anything except when they decide they want to get on and they want to find something. They don't want to go and look at a specific Sunday. They want to find a topic.
Yes.
And with the topic, they want to find out what is there specifically in there that can help me or guide me or, I'm in this situation. It's almost as if there's a combination of parenting and life coaching in the process of what most of the millennials have been looking for. And I have grandkids that are like that.
Yeah.
And they'll go on. They'll go on to their favorite site and they'll look for something that's going to be about the topic that's bothering them or that they would like to know more about. So it's a different world for sure. And adaptation is the only possibility.
Exactly. And adaptation will help you eliminate stress. It'll bring you an inner sense of peace. And that, especially it's true adapting in a relationship. You've been married to Mary Jean a long time. I've been married to my Jean a long time. Her life has changed because of the systems that have been implemented in the hospital. So Sunday night, she goes to bed at 8 o'clock because she's going to be at work by 5:30 in the morning. And so that changes my life. So I had to adapt to that. My wife has this new pattern. If I fought it, why is she doing that? Well, that's sort of silly. She should just quit, instead of just saying, wait a second, that's her life. How can I take my life to a different level? Why am I dependent on her? I'm really not. Why does my ego want her to fit my schedule?
Yeah. So here's a question for you. Given everything that we've said, is life going to do what life wants to do? Concession here to words because they don't exactly say what I want. But is life going to do what it wants to do? And if we just let go, it's going to take us where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, and all the other. Or are we going to jump in and play, command and control or commander of the ship?
I think it's somewhere in between. I think that life is happening all around us, and our mind is our ability on where we put our focus. And where we put our focus and what is the intention behind that focus draws to us an experience. We can't control what's happening, but we can control our response to it. And I think it's a really fine line to walk there. And
Yeah, because as you know, in the Hindu culture or the Asian cultures, there's karma, and it comes from, past lives, and all of that has this sense of there's a predestined track that we're on. That there's so many karmas from so many lives. How do you expect that there's any possibility that you're going to have any free will in this one, because life is going to keep giving you all of this stuff to deal with? And I think that's trapped a lot of people that get interested in the Asian religions and misunderstand, because I think it's a misunderstanding. But there is obviously a lot of truth to it, and we can't explain everything, and maybe karma does explain some of that.
well,
In science of mind, we talk about cause and effect, and I
yeah.
don't want people to get confused by it.
There's a DNA that's joined when mom and dad come together and that egg and sperm come together, and there's DNA in there. So you could say that the karma's coming together in that. But I truly believe that even though we may have tendencies, we're always free to choose. The question is, what's going to come from within us that's going to cause us to have the desire to choose differently? And not just choose differently, but choose differently persistently and consistently. And then where do we put that focus? Ernest Holmes talked about, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. I believe that. So I believe the level of awareness that I have in this life, and the wherever I end that level of awareness when I leave this body, that level of awareness is what I take into whatever the next realm is. And I think that
Yeah.
everywhere I go, it's going to be going from that point of where I left off. I start anew.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I understand from the perspective of reincarnation and lifetime to lifetime that the Asian, especially the Indian cultures, talk about reincarnating from a past life and bringing forward all of that. Excuse me, I got a bug in my throat. And then there's the question of, is all of that simply the mind doing its thing, and that the energy of the mind when we leave the body goes off into the swirls and then comes back into another body according to its needs to pacify that energy, to plateau that energy, so to speak. It depersonalizes it, because I don't think it's personal, because once I leave this body, I'm not personal anymore to this. So I can't say, oh yeah, when I was in this past life, well, that wasn't me. That was the energy of whatever that life was, right? So I think you're right. We do take our awareness, from my experience, and I do think in terms of Ernest Holmes that we're always evolving. We're on a spiritual journey, a long spiritual journey, if you will, time and space being the concession, but we're on a long journey, and as a result, there's a lot for us to keep learning, as long as we have the mindset that we have to learn.
And even if we don't have the mindset, I think if what we're talking about is what happens, if you don't learn, well, you're just going to go into the next life or next whatever it is from that same point where you didn't learn.
Or it'll keep you going on
Yeah.
that path, because I don't think the universe has anything to learn,
No.
because the universe can't learn anything. I mean, frankly, the universe is consciousness, and if it's one, there's nothing for it to learn.
Exactly.
On that note, I think we ought to let everybody rest because they're probably busting steam out of their ears.
What a joy it is to do it.
Oh, fun, fun, fun. All right, so we'll see you on the next one, and tune into our YouTube channel, and also we have our Apple Podcasts and other podcast site where you can catch it as well. So, Lee, we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody, and take care.
Aloha.